Hi, and welcome back to Women Making Magic. I am so excited about today's interview. Well, really, I'm excited about all of them always, but I'm so excited to be here with my friend, Rebecca Rubin, who is a feel-good marketing coach for women entrepreneurs. She helps her clients write content that makes waves in the entire world and overcome inner blocks to visibility and creativity. Her work has been featured in Entrepreneur, Business Insider, CBS Radio, NBC News, The Huffington Post, and more. She's also a full-time digital nomad and spent 2016 living in 12 countries in 12 months while running her business from her laptop. Like, whoa, can you say living the dream? On the days she's not writing, strategizing, and coaching, you can find her unwinding on her yoga mat, planning her next travel adventure, or binge watching the latest Netflix show about teenagers with magical powers. I love that. Just like us, basically. It's fine. Just like not teenagers. Welcome, Rebecca. I'm so excited you're here.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, of course. So let's just dive in. The first question I ask everyone is, what do you stand for in your life and business, and how did you discover that?
I stand for women feeling deeply okay and comfortable being fully expressed as who they truly are. And I think, that's really been my journey in a lot of ways. I used to be the shy girl in high school, and now I'm an online marketing coach. Like, it's kind of a funny transition, right? And I used to feel like who I was at my core was just not good enough or somehow uncool, or I just had a lot of, especially around my spirituality and my kind of soul work in the world, there was a lot of shame, and there was a lot of just not full expression. And I am really a stand for, everybody, but specifically women working through those layers that hold them back from really expressing who they are in the world and being visible for their authentic self, not their, perfectly presented self. And so that kind of is the undercurrent of my work, but on a more specific, I guess, level, I help women business owners really grow an online presence and start attracting those soulmate clients online through being very authentically expressed.
Through being themselves. Yeah, I think that's so powerful because it's something so many women can relate to, right? Like feeling uncool or not appreciated or not able to show who they really are. And then when they kind of start following this path, it's like, oh my God, everything I've learned is, wrong, or I have to unlearn it. So I'm curious what that transition was like for you. Like, how did you make
slow and bumpy? What that transition was like for me. So I took a pretty conventional path after college. I've always been spiritual. Like, I remember reading my mom's Deepak Chopra and Louise Hay books, like in middle school. But I sort of, that was like a secret part of me. I got a job in marketing after school. I did that for a while. I met a friend. So I went through kind of a painful breakup, and that sort of sparked, or I guess re-sparked, a path of self-discovery, and met one of my now best friends who was a coach, and she kind of showed me this whole world of coaching, and that, like, she was very expressed and very confident in just like doing healing work in the world, and so that kind of, I think that was a catalyst for me to own my own power and start to do the work I really wanted to do. And so yeah, that was sort of the start of that journey. And fast forward a few years, and it's my life's work, and it's what I get to do every day, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, totally, 100%. So I love how much spirituality you bring to your work and just how like open you are. And we're very, talk about a lot of spiritual concepts here on this show. And
Natural magic.
Natural magic. Yes, exactly. And so I'm curious how that weaves into like marketing is not traditionally spiritual. So I'm curious
I'm
how.
on a mission to change it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's funny because I work with women who are deeply spiritual, who are sensitive, who have really high integrity and a really strong desire to not show up in the world in a way that's inauthentic.
Yeah.
And the way marketing, especially online marketing, has been done in the past is very kind of old paradigm, as you would say, and very, you know, I think it's almost, I always think the first iteration of anything, it gets some things right and it also falters in other areas. So I think, connecting to people who need what you have to offer on the internet is inherently cool. Like to me, I just think that's cool. That is spiritual. And now I feel like we're in the next wave where we're really learning how to do it for, if you're attracting a wise, savvy, deeply spiritual and sensitive being as your ideal client, like that's how you need to approach your marketing. And so I think that there's a lot of outdated marketing tactics that are pretty fear based and are very sometimes technical to a fault and kind of formulaic. And, there's all these like psychological triggers. In many ways, like traditional marketing is it's not that different. There are actually some crossover with that in the pickup artist community. So I know we're going in a different direction, but it's true. And there are these like psychological triggers that, that can whip somebody into a frenzy if they're in an email sequence. And it's not hugely different from like a guy trying to get laid from a girl who wasn't actually interested in the first place.
And so, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's icky to me, obviously. But I do think that there's a way to really deeply connect with the people that you are meant to offer or you're meant to serve in the world in a non-icky, non-sleazy, whatever way. Just like there's a way to ask somebody on a date without having to like use pickup artist tactics. So I think it's all, it's like, I think sales is really beautiful. I think, commerce is beautiful. I think the online world, is really beautiful. I think it's just, we're now being called to approach all of it from a more conscious, loving, deliberate place. And so I think a lot of those older tactics that quite rightly rub a lot of people who I work with the wrong way are they're becoming less effective because a lot of people use them. And I don't know if that got off topic, but
no, it was beautiful.
That's kind of my thought. And I'm a big fan of leading with vulnerability. So I regularly share things online that many people would be like, no, you didn't. You know what I mean? And they're just like, but I really only want to attract clients that are okay with the fact that I'm a messy human. Like, and that doesn't take away from my credibility and my ability to get them results and to really be a powerful stand and a catalyst for their growth and their business and all of that, but that I can be human and they can be human too. And so I'm really passionate about sort of shifting this paradigm of like, the coach has it all figured out and then the client is like somehow less than. I don't know if that's making sense, but it's a pretty pervasive thing in the industry and I'm really interested in shaking it up.
Totally. And I think that's so important because no one has all the answers, and that's something that we stand for a lot on the show as well, as we're all kind of on our own journeys and sharing our own lessons, but it doesn't make me like better or more knowledgeable than you or, vice versa. And so I think bringing that to your marketing, that's always when the most powerful things happen in my business, when I can show up that way. I'm curious. I know like it can be very scary to start to kind of put yourself out there in that way. And so I'm curious, we're obviously friends on Facebook and I love a lot of what you post. And how do you work with, or, when you were first starting that, working with that fear of like, oh my gosh, what are people going to think about this?
Yeah. Terrifying.
Yeah.
So I feel like it was like a very intense, almost like a I almost got like online marketing hazed last summer in a way. I don't know if that even, I don't know what I'm saying.
Sure, we'll make it a thing. It's a thing.
Coming up.
Yeah.
But, so like I think it was like sort of a slow build to vulnerability for a while, but I was still kind of playing it safe. And then last summer I talk about it, it was like the launch from hell, and like there were a lot of things going wrong. And the day of my cart open call, which for anyone who doesn't know, like typically in launches, there'll be like a live call or some sort of experience where you can call people in and, announce your program or offering. It was entitled Feel Good Marketing. And I posted about it in a group that I was in, a Facebook group, and I was just like slaughtered / burnt at the online stake. And like people like questioned my character for promoting in the group. And it was just this whole thing. And I remember feeling like, oh my God, like I'm a feel good marketing coach getting online bullied for marketing, or it felt that way. The night of my launch, like this is not good. So that was obviously pretty upsetting. And I wrote about it on Facebook, and I was like really nervous to do this because I felt so raw, so overwhelmed. I didn't know, like I was embarrassed, like it felt really shameful to me. So I wrote about it, and it was my first post that really like kind of went viral, not viral, but like, a couple hundred likes, like lots of comments, and all these people coming out of the woodwork thanking me for being vulnerable and for sharing my truth. And I don't know, something really clicked for me. Like I was like, oh, like I think it took me that, like I was so shaken, I didn't know what else to do. But after that, I just started being like if there's a volume dial on how raw I was being, it just like, I turned it way up, and I just started connecting with the most amazing women, and I really just like momentum built, I guess. And then now I write on, I post something pretty raw almost every single day. Sometimes I'll take a couple days off here and there, but it really feels like part of my spiritual practice to post, which I don't know. And it's good for business, but it feels like I'm connecting with this like-minded community online, and a lot of them happen to be my ideal clients. But I've said this before in a post, and I really mean it. Like if somebody never buys from me ever, like, and all they do is read my posts and it helps them have like a slightly easier day. Like so many writers have done that for me, and I'm so grateful that it just feels like paying it forward. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's like, it feels like my like sort of virtual sisterhood that I get to like connect with and tap into and kind of plug into and share with. So yeah, it's cool when your spiritual practice is your marketing practice. It's nice when there's some synergy there.
Convergence. It's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's so powerful because oftentimes it's that like rock bottom or super painful experience that kind of like shocks us awake, and we're like, oh my gosh, okay, and it puts us on to a new, thing that was really what we were meant to be doing the whole time.
Yes, I'm trying to, I feel like that's like the truth, and I'm like, okay, I've heard there are these subtle whispers, and sometimes you don't have to be hit by cosmic 2x4s, that you can actually just like heed the nudges. So that's like what I'm trying to do. But yeah, it's usually more dramatic and messy and whatever. Yeah.
It's all good. Yeah. And sometimes it's nudges, sometimes it's like cosmic life explosion. You're like, oh my God.
A little more.
What is happening?
More kaboom.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of the women in your community, a lot of the women that we work with who listen to the show are highly sensitive, like very tapped in, connected to their emotions. It can be hard to like function in life sometimes, especially running a business. This is something you talk about a lot. So I'm curious, like, how do you cope? Like, what kind of practices you have in place?
Yeah. So I think it's definitely in process. I don't know if this is okay to talk about on here, but I'm just going to go for it because you're all about raw honesty. But I mean, I'm a big fan of the spiritual and the sort of like traditional medicine. So I've taken an antidepressant for several years now, and it's sort of like, I feel that it balances me and really helps me to just function on a high level in the world. And I meditate and I work out and I do. So I know there's a lot of sort of like shame in the spiritual community, I think, about talking about medication. And there seems to be a very dominant belief that it's like better not to. And so I think it really depends on an individual person and what they need and what really supports and serves them. So I like to think of it as like from the angels and like something that just helps me and gives me almost like a cozier, smoother life experience. So that's how I've reframed that. But that is a big part of my self-care. And like if I weren't doing that, I think it would have been harder. So I don't know if that's okay to share, but I'm going to be honest, as always.
Yeah.
And then in terms of practices, creativity is huge for me. So I'm a big, like, I have to get it out of my system. I have to like express it or talk about it or, write it out or something. So I think that is important. And, making it okay to be a little slower than maybe you think you quote should be. So I think we all have that taskmaster in our head that at the end of the day, we're closing our laptop and we're just like, I should have done more. I should have sent out that one more email, or I should have whatever. And I just think that becoming more conscious of that voice and being more gentle with ourselves and realizing that like it's not a race and it's actually safe to go a little slower and be a little gentler and take a midday nap if we need it is really important. I think there's phases also. I think that especially highly sensitive women, I'm learning about astrology and learning about the moon and how all that stuff affects me, affects my business. And so I don't know if it's like helpful, but if I'm feeling like really extra sensitive or really, extra slow or extra whatever, I'll often be like, what is going on in the cosmos right now? And I'll Google it and find something.
I do the same thing.
Do you? Yeah. So I think that's part of it. Yeah. I don't know. It's an ongoing journey for me. I don't think I figured it out, but I'm always testing new things. I just think being really gentle and loving with ourselves is like the ongoing lesson. And knowing when it's good to push yourself a little bit and when you really do need rest. So I think like it's almost like a yoga class. Like I think sometimes you can have too much yin or too much yang, right? It's not super helpful to always spend all your time in child's pose, but you don't need a really like aggressive vinyasa practice or ashtanga practice like every single class.
Don't need core
right?
power like all the time. Yeah.
Right. And so I think we really have to find the balance in between and honor where we are. And sometimes I think we need a little push. Like sometimes I think it's good to like, I think you get energy by doing sometimes. And like there's always going to be some resistance to getting into the creative flow and into your work. And so having some routines and structures to like, I don't know, that helps a lot for me.
Totally. And I think it's so fascinating. I work a lot with my clients around being in the feminine and kind of being in the flow, but it's interesting how like we can live our whole lives very much in the masculine. So then when we start practicing being in the feminine, it's almost like going the other way and like too passive and letting resistance masquerade as ease. And it's like, oh, well, and so it really is that practice of like, well, which is it, Well,
because it's scary to do a lot of the tasks required for an entrepreneur. I mean, that's what I think it really comes down to. Like, I don't know, even like talking to a new client, like I still to this day have that like little flicker of, I have to prove my worth energy. So like that, or being vulnerable, or even sitting down and, I mean, I do a bit of copywriting. So sometimes like once I'm in it, it's fun and it's flowing, but there's always that point where I'm just starting and it's like, oh God, what if I can't do this? This feels overwhelming. And I think since writing is such a common part of being an online entrepreneur, like we all feel this. It's like, what if I'm not good enough? This feels hard. I had an English teacher once say, don't be afraid of hard work.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know if that like makes sense, but I think sometimes we're afraid that like there's this not good enough, or it's gonna be too hard, or it's too whatever, and it's like I just think most of us are stronger than we give ourselves credit for.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, powerful. Like part of the feminine is that like power, you know, and so
fierce, collie energy.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it flows, and so I think it's really finding that balance between the masculine and the feminine.
I've been reading a lot of Stephen Pressfield again recently, War of Art and Going Pro and that kind of stuff. And that's basically his whole message is that, like it's going to be hard and you're not going to want to do it. And it's also a spiritual practice anyway. And it's very like butt kicking in that regard, but it's good.
Spiritual, I think sometimes people are like spirituality and self-care means like pleasure and like rest, but I think there's a spirituality to like
doing your work,
being with difficult feelings and you know, showing up when it's scary, and so it's just that balance.
Totally. And like, you know, we all have a calling, right? That's what Making Your Magic is about. And so that's not easy. That's not
it's not sexy. Like it's not as sexy as a bubble bath to like show up to a difficult client conversation or like what, you know, I just feel like every week there's like new lessons, and the more people you work with and the bigger your programs get and the bigger your online community gets, the more like just stuff you hold. That's been a very interesting thing as a sensitive entrepreneur is like there's just more energy in your space. It's really important to like cut those cords and like, because if I'm just open and I go onto Facebook and someone says something nasty, which happens, like it's, you know, you can get taken out, but there's a way to deal with that. And I do think like, for anybody who listening to this who's like, oh my gosh, she got online bullied and people are mean to her on Facebook, like I don't want that. I think the universe gives you what you're ready for on a level. So like, it's like baby steps. So it's probably not going to happen to you if you're first sharing your like first vulnerable thing or whatever. So just know that. I don't want to scare anyone who's like, well, I want to get visible, but that sounds terrible. Like, no, there's more good than bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Cross that bridge when we get to it. Like, maybe make your first spiritual post and then we'll see how it goes.
Totally.
So you traveled around the country, around the world, 12 countries in 12 months. So that, speaking of energetic systems, that is challenging.
Oh. It was challenging in interesting ways. It was, it was really fun.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, it was like the next edge for sure. Yeah.
What would you say was like the biggest thing that you've learned now that you've had a little bit of time to process?
The biggest thing I've learned, I think I know who I am a little bit more than I did before. Like I think when you see yourself in lots of different situations with different types of people, and then you see what traits are, this is maybe a weird thing to say. I'm doing that a lot today. I keep judging what I'm saying, which is so funny.
Yeah. We're an open book
right? You kind of start to like know yourself a little bit more, and you sort of like, I need some alone time. I am the kind of person that likes to see the sights, but doesn't need to see everything to feel like I've really gotten a sense of the place. I really love to like wander and go to like a really delicious restaurant and talk to people in like a slower travel pace. Ironically, like 12 countries in 12 months is like aggressive, but like when I was in each of those places, like there were people who I was traveling with who would do like a different weekend trip every single weekend, saw everything, were just like intensely like pro traveling, and I feel like I like was one of the slower in terms of like being a tourist or a traveler. Like I just like to feel a city or a space, and I loved just like, you know, Peru has such a different energy than Prague, has such a different energy than, you know, Cambodia. Like it's just, they have these different, and I don't know, as an energetically sensitive person, you really can like each city has an energy, an ethos, a feel to it, a taste, a smell. It was fun. Like I liked feeling, like viscerally feeling and experiencing different cities and different energies and seeing what was constant and how much, environment does affect me. Like I did feel like pretty different in Thailand than I did in London, when I woke up and swam in the ocean every day and was like drinking out of a coconut and, like had my laptop by the beach versus, being in the city. And I like all of it, it's all kind of different and interesting. And of course there are certain things that like are more comfortable than others and whatever. But I think it was a cool experience of just like seeing who I am in lots of different contexts and lots of different feels and lots of different just energies. Like it was an interesting energy experience.
Totally. And I imagine giving you a better sense of discernment of your energy.
Totally. And I think it was cool. Like I was around, like our group was very diverse and very, like, I feel like I don't know, I hung out with a lot of people a lot like me back in DC, like you, which is awesome. We birds of a feather. Natalie and I are very similar in a lot of ways. But it was cool to like be around people who had never heard of coaching before, like had never, it was just a broadening horizons experience, I think.
Which I love because I think it's, it's like anything else. We're like, yeah, that sounds amazing. And then we kind of get into it and we're like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And then, but what you get out of the experience is exactly what you need.
Totally.
Yeah, it's so amazing. And you created this whole content queen, brand and angle, like while you were traveling, which I just love. So can you speak? Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. So I mean, I've been a marketing coach for a while, but I think it's a couple of different reasons. I think I have seen in my own experience that writing is really the heart. It's my like favorite thing to do, and it's, I think, at the heart of the most powerful marketing and the marketing that's most authentic. It's really helping people share their stories. And so I think part of it is just practical. Like I think a lot of people are trying to create complex funnels and like really fancy websites and do all this stuff, but they can't clearly articulate like who they are, who they're here to help, and how they help them, and why they're qualified to help them, or you know what I mean? And those are basic, like being able to clearly express that and getting in front of your people and being able to communicate in a way that captures and keeps attention is super, super important. And I think much more important than some of these other pieces of marketing that are great, like a beautiful photo shoot and a Facebook funnel is perfect for somebody whose business is there and when it's the next right strategy. But I think a lot of people don't have like this basic foundation and this ability to express what they do, why they do it, and who they help. And that's the cornerstone of powerful marketing. And it's not really something that a copywriter can do for you 100% if you don't have you need to have that basic core there. And so I think it's what's most important. That's really a big reason.
100%. And I think stepping into that content queen energy is as much about the personal work oftentimes of like, okay, like becoming that person who can articulate who you are, right? That's like, you can spend your whole life answering that question.
Totally. 100%.
So being able to like do that inner work too and bringing that to your writing and your marketing and all of it, I think is so important.
My writing is way better when I've meditated. Like, it's just like the thoughts are clearer and more concise. And I always say there's an energetic current running through your words in any post that you put out there. And people may not be able to pinpoint it, but they feel it. And I absolutely see it in the responses. And when you've kind of like balanced your energy, if you will, like your writing will do better. It will convert more. It will and that's just another way of saying it will like deeply touch and activate the people it's meant to.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, that can be really scary, but if you have that calling, like, just got to get in there and let it be messy,
Yeah,
which is
totally.
so powerful. So, we talk a lot about intuition on this show, being connected to your intuition, following your intuition. I'm curious, we've talked a lot about writing, but how else does your intuition show up for you?
I mean, really, the people that I'm meant to work with and that are meant to be in my life, I feel like my clients are my friends. Like
Yeah.
anyone who comes into my inner circle, like I'm careful about that in a way, and I think within the first few minutes of connecting with someone, I kind of get a sense like, is this person good for me, or is this person like draining and kind of, I don't know. So I think intuition is pretty big for me in terms of like the people that come in, whether it's a team member, whether it's a client, whether it's a friend, whatever. And many of those move around, or a coach. I also think there's just so many decisions we have to make as entrepreneurs. Like you're always making decisions from when you want to launch your next product or service to who you want to hire. Do I want to join this mastermind? Should I speak at this event? Should I, partner with this person? There's just like a barrage of decisions. How should I structure my day?
Yeah.
Like I think decisions, just sheer number of them. And since you're like in charge, like you're the one making them, it's not like you have a boss that says you have to be at work at this time, this is your focus. You have to really put that structure on yourself. And so intuition helps a lot with that. Just like how I structure my day, how I make decisions. And a key point there, I think it's like really tapping into, there's a difference between intuitively what I feel is the right place for me to focus and what I necessarily like feel like in the moment. Like sometimes there's a difference between those two, and so kind of ties to what we were talking about earlier. But
right.
Yeah.
It's like that. Someone said something to me recently that I thought was so wise. It was like along those lines of oftentimes what you want in the moment is not like serving the long term. So
Totally.
It's like, okay, well, do I want this chocolate cake or do I want to be healthy? And not that chocolate cake isn't healthy, but like, you know what I'm saying, of just like that momentary win.
It's something I didn't realize would be like just the number of really being like, we all want freedom, right? It's like everybody's thing where they're like, ooh, I want freedom, I want to be my own boss, I want to do my own thing. But sometimes I think the sheer number of decisions that we can make can feel paralyzing and overwhelming. And it's like, I could do so many different things. I don't know where to go. I don't know how to focus my energy. I don't blah, blah, blah. So I think I don't know what my point was there. I think that's where intuition comes in, and having a spiritual practice. And you're so good with that. You are very good at your daily grounding practice and tuning in. I think that's important.
Yeah, but I think it goes to that same thing of like, if I let myself kind of wake up and be like, what do I want to do now? And like, I need that structure of like, okay. And it just removes that decision from my brain. So I'm not even thinking about it. And, but I know I have some clients, I have some friends who are more kind of, I would say, on your end of the spectrum, where it's like, I can't have that like container because it feels too heavy and I'm just way more flowy with it. And like, that's cool too. And again, it's that checking in of, is this really aligned for me? Is this what
you got to figure out what works for you, and like your results on some level. Like I do think like success in business is the result of a lot of small decisions and a lot of daily right actions. And so you can kind of, not that you're like, I in no way think that like the money in the bank or the whatever is a sign of success necessarily, but like when stuff feels like it's working, I think it's a sign of a lot of days spent in alignment.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Yeah. And when stuff isn't working, and sometimes, and that's such a basic way of putting it, because I think things flow and, we're always learning and evolving. But I think when we're spending a lot of moments and days doing the next right thing, even when it's hard, like our life starts working.
Yeah,
A
100%.
little more smoothly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what everyone wants, right? It's like, okay,
Yeah.
smooth sounds good to
So
me.
basic, but it's like true. That's what I've seen, at least in my.
Yeah, 100%. And I think letting that be okay, right? Like my daily rate action may look different from yours.
Totally.
And
Totally.
like that's cool. So I'm curious, when was one time, oftentimes we can hear, like you're saying, the nudges and the whispers, and we're like, no, that's too crazy or that's too much. I'm curious when there was one time you followed your intuition and it really surprised you.
Mm. Maybe I feel like that's like my daily experience. I mean, that it surprised me. Interesting. I mean, so I hosted a retreat in Thailand in last November, and it didn't really make logical. I mean, it kind of made sense, but I very much had this like. I heard like you don't really make money on retreats. Like it felt like a lot of work. Like my logical mind was like you should focus all your energy into your next group program launch. But I just was journaling one day and like wrote the sales page through my journal. And was just like, well, this is fucking good copy. It should be used.
Yeah, can't waste this.
I don't know. Like I'm weird that way, and so I just it was very much like. I kept getting intuitive nudges to do it, even though I wasn't sure if I could do it, or I wasn't sure if like it was a smart decision necessarily. And so I did it, and it ended up being like a really beautiful experience, and it was very magical and very like surprisingly awesome. I guess. I mean, I thought it would be good once I decided to do it, but it was definitely. It didn't make logical sense necessarily, but it just.
Yeah.
It felt I kept like getting the hint. Like if I write a sales page for something while I'm journaling, like usually it's a sign I should do it. Like it's just like wants to be born. So that and it did really well, and I made money, and it was beautiful and out of my comfort zone. But that was sort of a little surprising that happened, and the right people just came and. There were a lot of like sign-ups like 2 weeks before, and like who would have thought like going to across the world to Thailand that would happen. It's just a lot of little surprises around that. That's a recent example.
Yeah. Which is so cool. I just love when you take that leap, right? And you're like, okay, universe, I have no idea how this is going to go, but like we'll see.
I mean, I feel like every launch is like this leap in a way.
Yeah. There are a lot of pieces out of your control, and you're just like, I'm going to show up and do my best. Yeah. Which is really sometimes all that matters. I'm so glad to connect with you. So the show's called Women Making Magic, all about making your magic in the world. So I'm curious, what does making magic mean to you?
I mean, we can just manifest whatever we want if we're really willing to do the work. And I just think, I don't know, when you first asked me this question, you had mentioned it before we got on the line. I was like, I'll say something about writing. But I just feel like I am a really powerful manifester. And it's not just like put it on a vision board manifesting. It's like take a deep freaking look at like what in you is not a match for this, and what in you, like, what part of you says you want something, but like secretly is terrified, or secretly you have an idea of what this thing would mean about you. And so, I mean, it's magical to be able to like desire something and then do the inner work and outer work, but usually the inner work is harder, at least for me, and then just like have it come into your reality in like surprising and magical ways. It's very cool. It's very cool. We're just like powerful creators who like can have what we want. Like you can want something and then you can have it, and it can come in this like surprising, delightful manner. It's sexy and fun, and
Yeah.
You can have what you want. Like, that's not like a thought, but it's true. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
It's so beautiful. And it's such a good reminder, right? Like, automatically sometimes I think, well, that's just can be our automatic
Of
thing of
course.
like, oh my God, no, I can't have that. And
Life does not teach us this, but it's like actually true. Like we are creating our experience every moment of every day. Does that mean you can't have like bad moods? No, don't live in fear of your feelings, which I think like a lot of how the law of attraction and manifesting is
yes,
being taught
yes.
can kind of it's misunderstood and twisted a little bit, but like you really do create your reality in every moment of every day. Um, that's cool.
And that's magical.
Yeah.
Becca, thank you so much for your time. It's been so fun to have you on this show.
Um,
So, if women want to connect with you online, a million places, but where should they go?
my website is www.thepursuitoffabulous.com, and then head over to my Facebook. I really like my personal page, and I just this is like so weird, but I just hit the friend limit on Facebook, and so I can't
No!
have more friends. So I like don't know what to do about it. But you can follow there, and I post pretty much every day. And
How many
I
friends
post
do you
stuff that
have?
most people 5,000. I don't know. It's sort of oops. This just fell. This is the thing, people. When you start like talking about like deep, personal, like real shit, like people listen.
Yeah.
I just think people are starving for truth. So go there and follow me. Sorry if that sounds like egotistical. I really don't mean it that way. I'd love to connect with you. I also have a Facebook group called the Truth Tribe. So if you want to share your truth, but you're not quite ready for public Facebook yet, you can go there. I have an email list. I've got all the things, but just basically like find me and say hi.
Yes, amazing. Cool. We'll put all of that in the show notes. You can find all of Rebecca's amazing, inspiring, truthful content. Rebecca, thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you so
you
much.
for having me. This was so fun.
So fun. Bye.